The Carolina Storyteller is a campfire-style storytelling podcast covering ghost stories, legends, and true crime. Some content may not be suitable for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi folks, welcome back to the Carolina Storyteller. I am Jonathan Phoenix, your storyteller. Happy to have you here with me. As you know, last week's episode was a little bit late, but this one is on time, and it is on time for a reason, and that's because I wanted to make sure that it was on time. Honestly, really, I apologize for the delay for last week's, but I'm going to do my best not to have that happen again, and I'm going to do that by trying to get a little bit ahead on my recordings. So today's episode, this story is going to be really interesting. For those of you that don't know, I work at night, and I spend my nights driving a patrol vehicle around a site that's out kind of in the middle of the woods, but it's like this 2-mile wide site. And there's many levels of security perimeters. Like the most secure area that we have has a fence line inside of it that runs just in the circumference over 2 miles. So understand it's a very large area, and there's a lot of woods. There's not a whole lot out there once you get off the highway, but woods in this area. So it is not common or not uncommon, excuse me, for me to run into things like deer, possums, raccoons, cats, dogs, armadillo, which, for the record, I didn't even know we had in South Carolina until I saw them while I was working on this site. Totally different story. We'll get into that later. And all kinds of other things out in the woods. And of course, when you're out in the woods at night, it can be a little creepy. And there's no shortage of stories from where I work at about ghosts being in one building or the other, or how something is haunted, or there's something spooky going on. I even have a tendency to tell everyone that the woods in the front of the site are home to a plaid-eye. I'm almost positive it's out there. I refuse to go into those woods. I'm not going into those woods. You'll never see me in those woods, so don't ask me about those woods. But it was a co-worker of mine who turned me on to the cryptid that apparently stays on our site. And that was one night when he was telling me about all the creepy occurrences that he saw happening and the times that he had come across the knot deer. Yeah, you heard me right. It's just called a knot deer. Now, I thought that, we were making this term up, but the knot deer is actually a creature that is said to inhabit the Appalachian Mountains. Well, now, John, you're not in the Appalachian Mountains. No, I'm in the low country of South Carolina. We're just below the Appalachian Mountains. Literally, if you go northwest, you hit the foothills and then you hit the Appalachian Mountains. They literally start in the top west corner of South Carolina. You have mountains like Cedar Mountain, which is where I used to always go and hang out on my summers. So yes, we are near Appalachia, close enough that it is possible that a cryptid could have made its way down here. So I'm not doubting that this could be the very same cryptid from the Appalachian Mountains. So what is a knot deer? So these knot deer are described as deer from a distance, but the closer you get to them, the more something is off. They look like deer, but they're not deer. At least once you get close, you start realizing they're not deer. Now, the reason we know these are not deer is because the deer that we deal with, when we come up along the fence line and they're eating along the fence line, they like to run away. They like to bolt, but not a knot deer. No, the knot deer stands there and looks at you. Sometimes it'll only be on 3 legs. Its head is kind of messed up. Knot deer are known to move like a newborn deer, even though they're adults. They'll have double jointed limbs. Their head will seem to be misshapen, or a very barrel-like chest. Sometimes they'll stand almost on 2 legs. And instead of having the eyes on the side of their heads like deer, their eyes will almost kind of look like they move to the front like a predator's eyes. You understand that's the difference between herbivores and predators, is that predators' eyes are almost always facing front. They don't have an eye on either side. They have the eyes all facing forward, looking dead at you. Now, this is usually the first thing that people notice about the deers that are off, is the eyes. Sometimes they're said to have had multiple eyes. Sometimes they're said to have extra limbs. Now, in the legends, not deer are not afraid of humans. On our site, the not deer are not afraid of humans. They give everyone who encounters them a very uneasy feeling, as if they have some kind of intelligence or emotion when they look at them. Not deer look like they're threatening you, waiting for you to come out there so they can whoop up on you. Pretty much the same thing. Not deer are known to approach humans with odd movements and things like that. Now, generally, when humans get approached by something like that, the human's gonna, go away. These things will generally approach our fences when we're doing our fence checks. They don't seem to care that we're there. They almost seem to want us to be there, as if they're wishing they could just get on the other side of the fence and get to us. Sounds like a not deer to me. Not deer have been known to walk on their hind legs for a bit. Now, granted, with this, I have seen deer rear up on their hind legs. I've actually seen it, especially when you get two stags that are fighting. They will rear up on their hind legs and they will kind of kick and punch in one another. So I don't know that this is as confusing. And also, I've never seen the not deer on my site do that. Now, primarily, these reports of not deer, they're found on Reddit or TikTok or other sites. And usually the sightings are on the side of the road or something. They're not really ever said to be attacking anyone's home. And again, these creatures could have multiple explanations. A lot of skeptics think that they're just deer with birth defects, and that could make a lot of sense. I mean, I've seen one of these things myself, and it's standing there and it's looking at the fence, and its head is just kind of cocked sideways like its neck is broken. And maybe that's just a birth defect that it has, that it was born with. And because of where it lives and because of how protected the land surrounding it is, because of who owns the land and everything, the deer is able to survive simply because it has no natural predators in the area. So this slightly deformed creature is able to live, whereas were it in another area where it had predators and humans hunting it and things like that, it would be very much dead. But this not deer is apparently here on my site, hanging out next to the fence that I have to check for work. Yeah, I don't like this thing, in case you haven't figured it out. Now, it's thought that not deers may be also the result of some type of isolation and mutation within the DNA that occurs from, well, basically deer being forced to inbreed. Yeah, no, don't really think that's it. Just, there are lots of deers. Other people think that it could be a stage of CWD, which is a chronic wasting disease, aka the zombie deer syndrome. This is possibly where people get the views of what wendigos look like and things like that, or these are deers that are literally dying from a very horrible disease. And honestly, I really hope that's not the case, because this disease can be transmitted to some of the other creatures there, like our raccoons, possums, cats, and birds. Well, I forgot to mention the goose. We have tons of goose, too. They like to block up the streets. We're not talking about them. We're getting back to this very strange deer. But because of this disease and the wasting away that it causes, and it causes them to look like very deformed and very disturbing creatures, which could very well be misidentified as some of the traits of the not deer. It also could explain the double joints or multi-joint legs, as they're just areas where injuries have occurred and then kind of reformed wrong. There are suggestions that it could be lesions that explain the multiple eyes because of their reflectiveness to the light, instead of extra eyes. And, these are all really great and good scientific explanations, but they don't explain why this daggum thing is sitting there at 3 o'clock in the morning with its head cocked over, staring at me while I'm trying to, check and see if the gate that's 10 feet away from it is locked. And then it starts walking towards me like it wants to say something to me. Like, really? These explanations do not explain that to me at all, because there are like 40 deer out there. And I'm almost sure they're all the same. There's one gigantic stag, and I mean he's huge. And when I say huge, I mean that I have seen him 2 times. And the second time I saw him, he ran past the back of the patrol truck that I drive with all my medical and fire equipment in it. And as he ran past the back of the truck, he was towering over the tailgate. And I'm telling you, if he was a 12-point buck, he was a 14-point. He was just humongous. And I honestly believe he is the primary stag for the area. All the female deer flock to him. He's Big Papa on the site. That's just what it is. I'm pretty sure that there's somewhere where the deer are having like this hip hop club, and he's just leaned back in the cut going, "I love it when they call me Big Papa. Throw your horns in the air if you's a true player." He's just chilling out there. The other thing about this creature, and this is what my other patrol officer has told me on several occasions, is that when this thing comes around, the other deer don't stay around. Now, granted, we don't see this thing every night. We don't see this thing once a week. We see this thing in weird and random times. We do see it late at night. We do see it out where things feel the creepiest on the site. But when it's there, the other deer aren't. And in fact, one thing we've noticed is that if there is some kind of predator or something that has come on site, we can almost tell where the problem is based on where the deer are going. If we see all the deer running from one area, we know there's something in that area we need to look at. Could it be someone? Could it be something? We don't know. Whatever it is, something has spooked them, so we need to go and figure out what it is, especially if it's getting closer to our more secure areas on site. This thing is famous for spooking them away from those areas. Don't ask me why. So, do I have a knot deer on my work site? I don't know. Is a knot deer actually a cryptid and paranormal phenomenon? Well, if the thing on my site isn't just some kind of mutated, deformed deer, everybody else, that all the other deer just don't like, and the possums don't like it, and the raccoons don't like it, and the cats definitely don't like it. Yeah, I forgot to mention the cats. If they see it, they turn the other way very quickly. Because we have tons of cats on our site. I don't know why. So, if this thing is just a poor and misshapen and deformed deer, it has pretty much pissed off every other creature on my site because none of them want anything to do with it, which makes me feel very bad for the thing. On the other hand, given the fact that the knot deer is an actual cryptid, and it has been described and it has been cited for many, many years in the Appalachian Mountains, all the way down, and it kind of trails down into South Carolina, and of course those hills flow down into the Piedmont area, which flows down into the low country, which is where I am, because, all the rivers kind of flow out into the Charleston Harbor, which is right behind me, and I'm in the woods between the Appalachia and the Charleston Harbor, and if this thing just happens to have made its way down from the mountains and decided to park itself in my woods, and it is one of those cryptids, I really, really hope that it stays its happy little ass on the other side of that fence. It can play around in the woods on the other side of that fence all it wants. It just doesn't need to come anywhere near me. It can be where I don't go. There's plenty of woods over there, and we don't even have trails in that area half the time. But what do you guys think? Honestly, leave me a comment. Let me know. Have you ever seen a knot deer? Do you think the knot deer might be something that's real? Do you think maybe we're just giving too much credence to the creepiness of this thing, and it's probably just some poor, suffering creature, and because there's no predator to put it out of its misery, it's forced to live a life in solitude with all of its deer friends making fun of it because its head hangs off to the side and it walks funny? You know, please let me know in the comments. That's our story for today, folks. The story of my knot deer and the knot deer. It's a double header. Wow. Haven't done one of these before. Anyway, if you guys want to support the show or learn about our upcoming audio drama Valmont, go to patreon.com/The Carolina Storyteller. Valmont is in production now. We're working on episode 1. We have a great cast. We have people from the Josh and Polly Show, Truth or Demon podcast, Nonsense and Deep Thoughts, all coming together to produce this wonderful audio drama that's going to be dropping December 1st. So go over to patreon.com/Carolina Storyteller to get exclusive info, interviews with the cast, all kinds of extra stuff that's going to be going on there. You can support the show and get ready for Valmont dropping December 1st. And of course, you can support the Carolina Storyteller while you're there. And if you want more info on the Carolina Storyteller or the stories I'm telling here or the guests that I sometimes have, go to thecarolinastoryteller.com. You can check out our store. You can get lots of merch, t-shirts, stickers, coffee mugs. Who knows what else I've got on there? There's only one way to find out. Go to thecarolinastoryteller.com. I'm Jonathan Phoenix. That's our show for today. We'll see you next time. Stay spooky, my friends.